Hello, I hope you're doing great. Today we are going to talk about how you can create a dating app using Blazor and .NET Maui. Now, before we continue, please remember to visit fairplaytube.bdicosta.com, click the Buy Me a Coffee icon, and select a donation of your preference. This will help us keep the videos and products free for you. Additionally, you can support all of the projects by becoming a supporter in GitHub sponsors. So if you click the link for GitHub sponsors, you will be able to see the information and all of the ways in which you can become a sponsor. And some of the monthly sponsor tiers will give you access to the repositories in GitHub, like Fairplay Dating, Fairplay Tube, Auto-Generated System, Fairplay Condos, and eventually more. Okay, let's start. So, how do you create a dating application using Blazor? So, let's go to the actual application in a second. Let's see. Okay, you should be able. You are seeing Visual Studio. Let's see. Okay, there. So now here is the small navigation menu item for the application, and this is a Blazor WebAssembly application. Now there are things like allowing you to update your profile, right? And this will allow you to set your photo, your about, your natural color, your preferred hair color in a couple, and some other options that we are having in there, right? And more will be added eventually. Okay, now then you will be able to see things like your potential matches
Menu item, my potential matches.
and
Menu item, my potential matches. Menu item, my potential matches.
yes, also you can hear the menu items and there is a fix I need to do on that. But basically this application also has like audible aids for certain elements. Like for example, when you are looking at your matches or potential matches, you will be able to see the description like in here and you will be able to hear it.
Label text, key sapient nmnik et Myers queried. Label text, 1127.82 kilometers.
You also will be able to do things like the person and it will add it to your liked persons, right? I haven't implemented yet the not liked, but that will be similar. Basically, it will create a not liked and it will be saved as you didn't like it and it will refresh the visible content. Now you will be able to see things like my liked profiles.
Menu item, my liked profiles. Menu item, my liked profiles.
And as you can see, here are all of the profiles that the login user has liked. In this case,
Label
I should remove this. That still hasn't been removed. And again, it's the similar layout and um, similar functionality, except that it only shows the persons that you have liked. Okay, now how is that implemented? Let's go to the code. So if we go to Visual Studio, you will be able to see this solution, which has a lot of projects. So this solution is based on a chosen architecture that we are using for all of our Fair Play or all of the software we have designed under the Fair Play category, which is basically a set of rules for creating open source projects defined by me. Okay, so basically they are n-tier systems and implementing Blazor WebAssembly and MAUI Blazor client applications using a shared layout. So basically the Blazor WebAssembly application and the mobile application will look almost the same except for the native or specific parts, but most of the system will be the same, will look the same. Now, how do you implement these things? Basically, we have the database project, which is an SQL Server project. This project has all of the tables that we have so far, right? Like activity, which has like things like sports, smoking, bowling, riding bikes, things like that, right? The application role, which it currently has the roles for admin and user. The application user, which basically has the information for the user. Application user role, which is basically a link between the user and the role. Application user vouch. This is not implemented yet, but this is going to be used as a vouching mechanism. Basically, one of the expected features in the system is for it to protect the users. So users won't be able to use the features or the functionality of the application unless they have been invited and someone is vouching for them, right? So basically, even if you gain access to the system or you are able to create a user, you won't be able to use the features of the application unless it is verified that you are a trusted person. And this is a way to minimize the risk of um, weird persons or hurtful persons using this system. Because as you know, um, there are there are a lot of these kind of systems where bad people actually use them for bad purposes to hurt people and more, right? So we are trying to minimize that risk. As with every risk, you can never fully guarantee it will be eliminated, but you can do a lot of things to minimize it as much as possible, right? So this is one way to do so. We have the date objective, which is basically if the dating objective is like for friendship, for marriage, for just dating, right? We have the error log, high colors, the frequency. Frequency is like how many times a person will do any activity, and there is like user activity, which it basically has the link between the activity and the frequency. Okay, and there are a lot of other tables in there. Now that's the SQL Server project. Then we have the data access, which is basically implemented using Entity Framework Core. And to create it, we are basically using the EF Core Power Tools reverse engineered feature, so we don't have to manually write those classes. Okay, then we have the services project. The services project has the classes that will be in charge of consuming the data access tables. For example, if we have things like user profile service, this basically has a method to get filtered user profile by receiving a filtering sorting method. We have an extension here which basically receive the filter and executes the query. It actually uh, creates an expression tree based on this and um, executes or prepares the query based on what it receives, right? And this is an extension that was actually found in GitHub and credible extensions. And here is the link and how to implement that. Okay, now it returns the query sorted as the sorting, and it actually returns an queryable to avoid the immediate execution. Just return the queryable so you can keep modifying the query if you need it in the upper layers and then execute it whenever you need it. Now, the other thing that you will see in here is that there are things like hair color service, which actually have no code at all, but they are using the service of entity attribute in here, which is an attribute used in the C# source generators that we have created for based on the auto-generated system repository or project that we created time ago. And this will basically create another partial class with the CRUD methods for that specific entity. Okay. Now we go to the server project. We have the controllers and we have things like the user profile controller, photo controller, etc., etc. Here we have things like my matches, which is one of the most important parts of the application, right? This one is not auto-generated because this one actually has custom logic that cannot easily be auto-generated. So, for example, I want to find my potential matches. So I receive the filtering sorting model, I receive the page request model, and the cancellation token, which is automatically sent by the ASP.NET Core engine. We get the application user ID, which is the primary key for the application user table. We get the user profile, right? Using that application user ID. Since the user is logged in, it is guaranteed that the record actually exists in the database, so we don't care if this is null or not. So we can always do a single async, and in theory, it should always work. Now, we create or prepare the query. Basically, we get the filter user profile, we include the photo, the application user, the liked user profile, and basically we are looking for the potential matches for this person uh, where the login person hasn't liked that profile so that the liked profiles are not displayed in the potential matches screen because it has already been liked and there is another page for that as we saw in the application before. Now we create the result, which is the page items using the page items of user profile model, and we set the page size, which is taken from a constant. We set the page number, which is basically retrieved from the page request model. We get the total items, which is retrieved using the Kony async based on the query. We get the total pages, which is calculated using the match ceiling for the total items divided by the page size constant. And then the items will be the ones we can retrieve and execute in the query. But first we want to apply a sorting to get the to sort by the best match to the less best or exact match, right? To the less best or the less exact match. I don't know what will be the best wording for that. But basically it will sort. The intention of this is that will create or will show you the most qualified or the better matches first, right? Then we do the paging in here, right? Skip, take, and we do selecting here. And this is a small trick we are doing to be able to retrieve or calculate the distance by using geolocations. So basically we project or we do a select and we set the data into a variable or yeah, property in here. And then the distance is going to be calculated from the current geolocation or by invoking the distance method for the current geolocation column against the of the user profile against the current geolocation column of the user in the row being selected, right? And then we set all of the properties, right? In some places we are using automapper, but in this specific case, since we had to invoke this and try to guarantee this is executed in the database instead of being executed into memory, um, it was not really easy to or to use automapper for this specific situation. But this is the way to calculate that. Now, then we have another project, client services, and this client services has a my matches client service, which has the client method to consume that endpoint. So get my potential matches has the query for this request URL, authorize HTTP client, and then we return the result, right? So that's basically it for that. Then in the shared UI project, which is where we have the shared pages for both Blazor and the MAUI application, we have this my potential matches Blazor file or view or page or however you want to call it. Now it has an inherits custom based component because this one creates a cancellation token, right? Then uh, we use the loading indicator, right? And we bind it to this BC variable, right? We put the title and then we put the rest. If potential matches is different than null, then we print the user profile card list component with the items retrieved from this variable. Now, if the page number is higher or greater than 1, we show the previous page button. We show a string showing like page 1 of 2 or 5 of 5 or whatever pages are there. And then if the page number is less than total pages, we show the next page button, right? Then we go to the code behind and you see that we have the authorize. This page is only going to be accessed or available to the users with the user role and the route is going to be this route from the, or is going to be taken from this constant, right? Which is basically slash user slash and my potential matches, right? Then we inject the required services like the client service, the ITOS service, the lookup client service, which is actually not being used anymore in here, so it can be removed. Uh, we define this BC variable. We create the variable for the potential matches, right? And then we create the page request model variable in here. Then we load the data, right, in the onInitialize async method. And it's a try catch. We set is visited true. Then if the potential matches is not does not equal null, we set it to null, and then we refresh the page just so that we see the items, the previous items disappear before we load the next ones. Then we set the potential matches equals to the results of the get my potential matches async, sending the page request model. If some error happens, you invoke the show error message async from the TOS service. And finally, we set this BC to false. If one of the buttons is clicked, the previous page is going to reduce the value of page number, and then it will execute the load async method, and something similar will be happening when you click the next, right? And now this is an event that is being invoked from the control. So you will see that this user profile models is a control that actually has logic inside of it. It allows you to do like or not like. So for example, when we invoke the like async, it will basically invoke the add my like user profile async method of the my matches client service. And after it does that, it will invoke the on after like not like button click variable, which is an even callback. As you can see, it's an even callback parameter, and as you can see, it is being bound in here. And basically, what this does is reload the data. This is actually why when I like a person in the user profile, the data was being reloaded, right? So the data was being reloaded directly from this server, right? And it will exclude the persons that have already been liked from that specific page, right? And to avoid things like manually modifying the items in the array. Basically, we want to have the data synchronized to whatever changes have been applied in the database. Okay, and we want to keep the pages as clean as possible. Basically, just do one or as few things as possible. And this is basically the way in which this is being implemented. There is one thing that you will see in here in the pages. For example, in the pages we have the menu items, and the menu items is basically a component. And behind the scenes or in the CS code, we are creating the menu items depending or based on the role. So for the user role, we are showing the update my user profile, user preferences, my potential matches, search my potential matches, my like profiles, receive like profiles, and that's it. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you very much and have a great day. Remember to visit fairplaytube.pticostarica.com, click the Buy Me a Coffee icon, and select a donation of your preference. You can also visit or sponsor us by using the GitHub sponsor link that you will be able to find in FairPlayTube too. Have a great